Walter's Sports Bar in Navy Yard offers $5 happy hour in both snacks and drinks. To reserve a table, visit waltersdc.com/happy hour.
Now the set, the 2-2. Lile blasts one again to right center field. Chasing Acuna, and Harris looking up at the wall, and it's gone! Lile is homing again. That one down to the Braves bullpen. 2 solo homers for Lile, 3 for the Nationals. It's a 3-0 lead. Lile now with 13 home runs. He's taken Holmes deep twice here in the first 4 innings of Game 1 of this series.
Nationals leading 3-1. Irvin comes set, checks the runner of the pitch. Breaking ball hit in the air to deep right. This one is going, and gone. Goodbye. A 2-run homer into the Chop House restaurant. For Mike Yastrzemski, his 7th of the year. And he got a hold of a curveball that hung and drilled it. This game is now tied. The Nationals 3 and the Braves 3 on a 2-run homer by Mike Yastrzemski.
0-2 count. The set for the lefty. Holmquist delivers. Swinging a line drive. That's going to be a base hit to right center field. 2 runs will score. And Atlanta leads it 5-3. Albies comes through with a 2-out single on the 0-2 sweeper down and out of the zone. He struggled with the first 2, not with the third.
And welcome to Nats Chat. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. I'm joined by Washington Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. He is at Truist Park in Atlanta. So for all of the greatness of the 2026 Washington Nationals offense, it lately has had some problems in high leverage spots, and we saw this on Thursday night, a 5-4 loss at the Atlanta Braves in Game 1 of a 4-game series. This was a game in which the Nats blew a 3-0 fourth-inning lead. This was a game in which the Nats went 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position, and so the Nats in MLB's 2026 regular season are back at 500, 55-55. Run differential now at plus 27. Nats now 2.5 games behind the Arizona Diamondbacks and Philadelphia Phillies for the National League second and third and 3 wild card spots. So those numbers, 2 and 3 spots, are held by the Diamondbacks and Phillies. Each team is 57 and 52. Both the Diamondbacks and Phillies were off on Thursday. The Braves, they now are a National League East best 64 and 45 with an NL East best run differential of plus 97. Nice to have you with us on what was, as of Monday, the number 7 podcast in the country on Apple Podcasts in the U.S. baseball category. We thank you very much for that. Coming up later in the show, examination of reports regarding the Nats pursuing a contract extension with starting pitcher Foster Griffin. Will he be traded in the lead up to the 2026 MLB trade deadline, which is this Monday, August 3rd at 6 p.m. Eastern? So the Nats, since the All-Star break, are 7-6, but 4 of the 6 losses have been one-run losses. The Nats in this regular season as a whole are just 13-16 in one-run games. Of course, many things go into winning one-run games. One of those things is hitting with runners in scoring position. 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position in Game 1 of a big 4-game series. Mark, that obviously is not going to cut it.
No, it's not. And it's one thing to be the highest scoring lineup in baseball. It's another to have hit the most home runs. You saw on display here in this game why they're in that position. They hit 3 big home runs, all solo home runs, unfortunately. But you also saw that to win tight games against good teams, and this certainly becomes more and more true the closer to September you get, and definitely when you get to October, it's hard to just rely on the home run to do everything for you. There are going to be spots that you come up with a man on third, man on second, multiple runners in scoring position, less than 2 outs, and you just have to find a way to get that runner home. And this has become something of a recurring problem for them, I feel like, in the last few weeks. Certainly the last few days. They lost a couple games to the Blue Jays for this reason, and they lost this game to the Braves for that reason. And I thought it was interesting that Blake Butera actually came out and said that he thought that the approach in those situations with runners in scoring position was not as good as it could have been. He feels like they're maybe trying a little too hard, being a little too aggressive, chasing out of the zone.
No, it feels like, especially tonight, I feel like our approach changed a little bit with runners in scoring position, especially with the base open there earlier in the game. We had second and third, nobody out.
And there are times that you just need to make solid contact. You don't necessarily have to be trying to hit the ball 400 feet. These are things that you learn over time. Good hitters become good at this as they gain more experience. This could be really, between this and the bullpen, I think these are the two critical factors for the Nationals the rest of the way. If they're going to stay in this race and in theory come out on top of it, you've got to be able to win close games late. And that's a combination of clutch hitting and then, of course, preventing the other team from scoring runs late with your bullpen.
You know, it's funny. The Nats for the regular season as a whole actually have good stats as a team in terms of hitting with runners in scoring position. Number one in MLB in home runs with runners in scoring position, 41. The team OPS with runners in scoring position is 761. That's not bad. But like anecdotally, it does feel like hitting with runners in scoring position has been a problem. Maybe we've been so spoiled by how great the offense has been, but certainly lately hitting with runners in scoring position has been an issue. And it does stand out that since the All-Star break, so many of the losses have been, these coin flip games, these one-run losses, and another one for the Nats happening on Thursday night. This was such an odd game for the Nats offensively. So they score 4 runs. Just 7 hits, but 6 of the 7 hits were extra base hits. 3 home runs, a triple, 2 doubles, 1 single. The Nats worked 4 walks. That's good. The Nats struck out just 6 times. That's good. But the 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position stood out. The other thing, too, at this game, the Nats again got to a good opposing starting pitcher. The Nats homered 3 times off the Braves starting pitcher Grant Holmes, who allowed 3 runs in 4 2/3 innings. Holmes came into this game with an ERA of 3.79 over 20 games, including 19 starts. There was a lot to like with the offense overall, but the struggles with runners in scoring position really stood out. Luis Garcia Jr., another big game for him. He fell a single shy of hitting for the cycle. He was the Nats starting first baseman and number 2 batter, 3 for 5 with a solo homer, an RBI triple, and a double. Yes, the hit that he missed for the cycle was a single. Garcia and the Nats 1-run third, a 1-out solo homer on a moonshot to right field for a 2-0 Nats lead. The homer went a projected 455 feet per StatCast, went off the chop house in right field. Garcia and the Nats 1-run 7th, a 1-out RBI triple to the right center field gap to cut the Nats deficit to 5-4. He continues his breakout season now at 23 home runs, OPS of 882. Of course, we have wondered about him regarding this trade deadline as he is in his age 26 season under team control through the 2027 season. But man, Garcia was so locked in this game. And that home run was something, 455 feet.
That was one of those that even in person, I didn't keep track. I couldn't actually tell where the ball landed because I'm not thinking to look that high. I'm looking in the stands and then I'm like, wait, where did that ball land? And you had to watch the replay to realize just how far it went. That was titanic from him. And what a big night for him, both at the plate and in the field. Made a couple of really nice plays at first base, although they also dropped a potential pickoff throw where they had him. It didn't cost them that one. But what I really liked, I mean, obviously the home run is great and we've seen him do that this year, but an opposite field double in the first inning, the RBI triple in the 7th, and that was somewhat of a fluky triple, as they often are, because Michael Harris goes to dive for the ball and it gets past him, it rolls to the wall, but it's still a really good, solid line drive hit to center field to drive in a run and then showing off the wheels to get to third base. So I liked all of that from him. There's still this lingering question. Are we watching the final games of Luis Garcia's Nationals tenure? A game like this is only going to help other teams out there become interested in him. Now, it may also raise the price. If you're Paul Taboni, I'm really interested to see what happens with that one. Are they trying to sell high, or are they saying, no, he's such an important part of this lineup, both this year and potentially next year, that we don't want to part with that? I'm not sure what the answer to that one is, but he certainly is rising to the occasion now at a very important time of the year for him and for the team.
Well, the two guys to watch regarding the Nats potentially selling regarding this trade deadline pretty clearly have become Foster Griffin and Luis Garcia. Everything you read and hear now about shortstop C.J. Abrams is that if the Nats trade him, it would be this coming offseason. It feels like there isn't a lot of momentum right now for a C.J. Abrams trade happening in season. Now, of course, we don't know, okay? I mean, all kinds of things could be happening behind the scenes, but the general sentiment seems to be if Abrams gets dealt, it's not going to be in season. But the Garcia thing is so interesting because he's having the season of his life. I mean, his OPS now is approaching 900. And it's like, okay, if you're ever going to sell high on a guy, this would be the time to do it. But of course, if this is who you believe him to be, why not hold on to him and try to get production out of him and maybe even pursue an extension with him either in season or this coming off season? So Garcia, big game for him. Daylen Lile, he needed a big game, and he had a good game, a 2-home run game. He is the Nats starting left fielder, a number 5 batter, 2 for 4, 2 solo homers. Lile and the Nats 1-run second, leadoff homer to right field for a 1-0 Nats lead. Lile and the Nats 1-run fourth, leadoff homer to right center field for a 3-0 Nats lead. That homer going a projected 408 feet per StatCast. Lile had been slumping. Now his OPS is at 717, which isn't too bad, but he's been rather up and down this season, I feel like. You know, at times really good. At times it's like he has disappeared, but he gets a game like this on Thursday night, hopefully gets him going again.
He absolutely needed this one, like you said. He is a guy who, when it's not going well, he can get pretty down on himself. And I think you saw some of that body language here in recent weeks as he's gone through it a little bit. And so to see him smile again, he's got a big smile. And we know last year with what he did in the second half that it comes out when he's going well. And we had not seen that in a while. It was really nice to see that. Interestingly enough, he had family in the stands. Remember the Cincinnati series when he went off in front of all his family and friends who had come from Louisville? Well, his father and at least one uncle, maybe some other friends, are on this trip in Atlanta. And you could tell that kind of boosted him somewhat. And he really felt good about the fact that he performed for them. The other thing he said, which I thought was interesting, is he's had a little bit of a mindset change here recently. He's come to the conclusion that yes, he knows he can hit. He's always had the ability to hit well, but he is really trying to focus now on his approach a little bit more. And I think that's a good sign because when he's gone south here in recent weeks, it's a lot of chasing out of the zone. It looks kind of like he comes to the plate not necessarily having a good plan of knowing what he wants to do. I think he's acknowledging that either himself or somebody brought it up to him, and he's trying to rectify that and take a little bit different mindset and a better approach to these at-bats. It's one game, so I don't want to read too much into it, but he seemed to feel like this could be a turning point for him, and that would be fantastic. As we've talked about, as good as the lineup is, they do still need more, especially from the bottom half of the lineup, and the Curtis Mead trade puts added pressure on guys like Dylan Cruz, Brady House, and yes, Daylen Lile as well, to step it up here and fill that void and help sustain this kind of offense through the rest of the season after they traded away one of their better guys.
Do you think whether Nats president of baseball operations, Paul Taboni, trades Luis Garcia Jr. is at all impacted by what Taboni thinks of the secondary offensive guys, Daylen Lile, Keibert Ruiz, etc., Brady House? Or do you think one is independent of the other, that what Taboni does with Garcia has nothing to do with how a Daylen Lile or a Brady House is doing, what Taboni thinks of Lile and House moving forward, etc.?
I think, as we talked about when they traded Mead, you could say, hey, there's still enough offense here that we could make up for that. Once you've traded him, if you're going to trade Garcia as well, you're really asking for a lot from the rest of them. Now, maybe he could think to himself, okay, Cruz is getting hot, Lyle's getting hot, Ruiz, Ford, House, maybe there's still enough there. But I feel like the Garcia decision is really more about, number one, do you think you still have a chance this year to make a run at this? And number two, what are you being offered? As I think it always comes down to. He's not going to feel compelled to move Luis Garcia if he doesn't get an offer that he likes. But if somebody's going to give him something that helps both in the short and the long term, you have to at least consider it. So I think it has more to do with that than necessarily what you think you have for the rest of the lineup. I mean, let's be clear here. Trading Luis Garcia right now would be a huge dent in this offensive production. Others can step up some, but it's hard to believe that they could still be this dynamic of an offense losing Mead and Garcia, especially when you look at what would you have now at first base, and you'd probably be calling up Abimelec Ortiz. There's no way. He could come out and be great. He's not in any way going to be able to duplicate what Garcia has done. So I think that decision is less about what the others are doing and more about how committed you are to trying to win right now. And then secondly, and probably most importantly, what are people offering for him? And is it enough to convince you that, yes, this is a move I have to make as opposed to just a move that I want to make?
Yeah, so people understand Luis Garcia Jr. is slugging .566. He is slugging better than both James Wood and C.J. Abrams. Wood's slugging percentage is .550. Abrams is .555. Garcia, again, is at .566. He is having the season of his life. Speaking of James Wood, he was an starting right fielder and number one batter, 0 for 2, but with 3 walks and a stolen base. Did commit a throwing error, but his OPS now at .950, including a .400 on base percentage. Number one in MLB in walks at 89. Al Galdi here to tell you about Window Nation. But before that, the Window Nation look into the future.
Morrell launches a line drive to deep left field. Franklin going back. It's over his head, and it's off the very top of the fence. Franklin plays the carom, throws to second. Wallace to tag. He's out at second base.
Hey, Al Galdi here for Window Nation. If you're using chat to research your next home improvement project, forget the prompts. We've got all the details on a company that you can trust. For replacement windows and doors without the hassle, just look up Window Nation. Window Nation is the real deal. Homeowners across the country love the one-day installation process, especially since Window Nation installers leave your home cleaner than when they started. And this month, you can get 50% off all window styles, plus 0 down, 0 interest, and no payments for 2 years. That's a lot of savings on top of quality windows and doors. 866-90NATION or windownation.com, and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast. Window Nation, the real deal when it comes to replacement windows and doors. 866-90NATION, windownation.com, and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast.
The 2-2 blasted right center field deep. I don't think the park's going to hold this one. Back toward the Braves bullpen, it's gone. And Jake Irvin's combined no-hit bid 2 months apart is gone. He had not allowed a hit in 8 1/3 innings over 2 games here in Atlanta. But Acuna ends that one with a long home run off the back wall of the right center field bullpen. It's now 3-1 Nationals. Number 8 on the season for Acuna.
Funny to come back to the place where, last through, but yeah, felt really good. Good to be back out there competing.
So the Nats starting pitcher in this 5-4 loss at the Braves on Thursday night was Jake Irvin, as he is back. The Nats on Thursday afternoon announced having returned Irvin from his minor league rehab assignment and having reinstated him from the 60-day injured list. He'd been on that since July 10th. He was on the 15-day IL from May 24th to July 10th. All of this due to a right shoulder strain. As you may remember, the initial word was that he would begin throwing in just 2 days. He instead ended up missing more than 2 months. We all learned a lesson about prognosis when it came to this Jake Irvin scenario. Anyway, he was back for this game on Thursday night. He officially allowed 5 runs in 5 innings, though 2 of the runs came with him out of the game. He gave up just 3 hits, but 2 of them were home runs, and he gave up a single, issued 2 walks into wild pitch, recorded 1 strikeout through 61 pitches, just 36 strikes, 25 balls. Also gave up a lot of hard contact. The 2 home runs, bottom of the 4th, he gave up a 1-out opposite field solo homer by Ronald Acuna Jr. to right center field to cut the Nats' lead to 3-1. Bottom of the 5th, Irvin allowed 2 runs, gave up a 2-out single by ex-Nat Dominic Smith to right field, and Smith advanced to second base on a throwing error by James Wood, who had failed in an attempt at a diving forward catch. I tell you, these last 2 games for the Nats, not the Nats' best in terms of success on attempted diving catches. Wood failing in that moment and then committing a throwing error. Then Irvin gave up a 2-out 2-run homer by Mike Yastrzemski to right field to tie the game at 3. This was a mixed outing, I thought, from Jake Irvin. At times he looked good, but the overall results ended up not being good. The peripherals were not especially good. And like I said, he did give up a good bit of hard contact in this outing.
4 of the first 7 batters he faced hit the ball to the warning track. Now, they were all caught, but off the bat, you thought for a second, uh-oh. And then the ball died and ultimately was caught in each case. But that did kind of tell you, he's kind of getting away with it here a little bit, and it felt like it was just a matter of time until somebody got a hold of one. And sure enough, Acuna did in the 4th, and then later on Yastrzemski in the 5th. He was so pitch efficient. He finishes the 5th inning on 50 pitches. And the plan coming in was that he was probably only going to go about 75 because he hadn't gone more than, I think, 63 or 65 on rehab. And so they understood that they had to ease him back in somewhat. So I don't think Blake Butera ever considered that he'd be sending him back out there for the 6th inning. The problem was he was so efficient that he felt compelled to put him back out for the 6th, even though you're facing the lineup now for the 3rd time. He had Palmquist warming right away, and of course, 2 walks to start the inning, and that's it. He's out of the game. In hindsight, but even in the moment, I was sort of thinking to myself, is this worth pushing it? It's not just about the pitch count itself. It's about the number of ups, the number of times you come back out to take the mound. And for Irvin to reach the 6th inning in his first game off the IL, his first major league game in 2 months, it did feel like a lot. And I get it. He had hardly thrown any pitches, but it did feel a little bit like you're tempting fate there. What I wonder, and Butera would never come out and say this, is in his mind, is he saying, Jake Irvin in the 6th inning, before he's probably ready to throw that much, is still better than whoever I got out of the bullpen right now.
So I know the pitch count was low, but also we're keeping an eye on, felt like he was in spots to go back out there in the 6th. But once he let those first 2 guys get on, we want to get him out there just in case.
And that may have been the internal debate in his own mind, and he decided, I got to send my starter back out there. That's still better than whoever I might summon for the bullpen. But it put Palmquist into a jam. Now, he almost got out of it. And if James Wood gets a better break on that ball off the bat, that was the problem there. He broke backwards and then came in, and it was too late and didn't make the catch. And then he compounded matters by trying to throw behind the runner, and it got away. So it starts with that. The inning should have been over. But then, of course, you have now the Yastrzemski home run, and that just kind of ruined everything for Jake Irvin.
Yeah, the Irvin outing reminiscent in some ways of the Eddie Jean opener outing where you're too efficient for your own good. And that maybe was the case with Jake Irvin in this game. It's going to be interesting to see Jake Irvin back, Trevor Williams back. Each guy has been plagued by the home run. Does that continue, or are they able to manage that at least somewhat? Irvin in this game, 2 more home runs allowed. Irvin this season at the major league level, 9 homers in just 56 2/3 innings. For comparison's sake, Nats starting pitcher Cade Cavalli has allowed 10 homers in 116 2/3 innings. So Cade Cavalli has allowed 1 more home run than Jake Irvin has allowed in 60 more innings pitched, to give you an idea of how much the home run is an issue for Jake Irvin. Mark hit on some of the Nats relief pitching in this game. So 2 Nats relievers officially combined for 3 shutout innings. Carson Palmquist officially tossed 2 scoreless innings, but he in the bottom of the 6th gave up a 2-out opposite field 2-run single by Ozzie Albies to right center field on an 0-2 pitch for a 5-3 Braves lead. And Riley Cornelio tossed a perfect bottom of the 8th with 2 strikeouts, and he did this on just 9 pitches. Cornelio, I know at times it is ugly, but at times you see why the Nats like him. You see the stuff, and in an inning like that, you're like, wow, if this could be the Riley Cornelio who we see more often than not, that could really help this team down the stretch.
And facing good hitters, Acuna, Olsen, and Harris in a 1-run game on the road in a pennant race, that's big. You can tell that there's something there with Riley Cornelio. It's really a matter of experience. And of course, him being in this new role as a reliever, came up through the minors as a starter, and all of a sudden you're, asked to be pitching high leverage situations out of the bullpen. He's kind of learning on the fly with that, and not always pretty, as you said. But if he gains some more experience like this, has some success, it's going to help him. It really feels like in his case, if he can just land the slider, not even for a strike, but just somewhere in the vicinity of the strike zone, make it look like a strike, he has a chance to be very successful because the fastball slider combo is really good. But he's got to command it. He's got to stay out of his own head, and he's got to stay calm in these moments. This was a good one for him in kind of a big spot. I was glad to see that. And in Palmquist's case, should have been out of the inning, had an 0-2 count on Albies. It's not a bad pitch. It was way down and out of the zone, and Albies just somehow golfed it for the 2-run single. So Palmquist, not a guy you normally want to think of in a high leverage spot. He did pretty much do his job. I know he gives up the eventual game-winning hit, but not on a bad pitch, and otherwise was pretty solid over his 2 innings.
Yeah, that was a good piece of hitting by Ozzie Albies in that spot. To put a capper on our discussion about Nats relief pitching, so the Nats on Thursday afternoon announced that reliever Mitchell Parker on Wednesday did undergo an internal brace procedure to repair the grade 3 UCL sprain in his left elbow. Him undergoing UCL surgery, of course, had been expected. The Nats on June 29th announced having put Parker on the 15-day injured list due to left elbow inflammation. Nats manager Blake Butera the next day, June 30th, during a pregame session with reporters, said that Parker had the grade 3 UCL sprain in the left elbow and likely needed UCL surgery. And the Nats on July 1st announced having transferred Parker to the 60-day injured list. So he, of course, is done for this season and likely is out for most, if not all, of next season. My question is this. Do we know why it took so long for Parker to actually undergo the surgery? He got put on the 15-day IL on June 29th. Wednesday was July 29th, and that was finally when he underwent the surgery.
I think it was a combination of a couple of second opinions and making sure that they were 100% knowing what the injury was. And the other part, I think Dr. Keith Meister is very in demand right now, and may have been a little while till they could squeeze Mitchell Parker in. And I know that's annoying to some extent, but I think you're also at that point in the year where you have this, you know, it's going to be at least a year that you're out. And so maybe there's not that much difference in what you might provide late in 2027 or not, whether you had the surgery, say, early July versus late July. Not the ideal scenario. And just to clean up one thing you said there, yes, he had the internal brace procedure. It's not officially Tommy John surgery, which I guess by definition means you take a ligament or tendon from like your leg or even from a cadaver, another body, and you replace the elbow ligament with that. In this case, they repaired it. It was strong enough or intact enough to like reattach it and then put the internal brace on top of it. So it's kind of a hybrid surgery was the way it was described to me. So it's not officially Tommy John, but it's also not just the internal brace either. It doesn't change the timeline. It's still 12 to 18 months. And so that may have had something to do with the timeline for this also of when he had it done.
But this is still, UCL surgery, right? That's the bottom line. It's under that umbrella of UCL surgery.
Correct. I think for a long time, we just kind of knew it. You had Tommy John surgery or you didn't, and that was it. And now there are some other in-between methods or alternative methods that accomplish the same thing without being the official replacement of the ligament surgery. There's some other things you can do now.
Here's the pitch. Swing and a high pop fly. Right field. It's playable for Acuna. Moving in under it in right center makes the catch. And the game is over. Garcia flies out on the first pitch against Iglesias. And the Braves hold off the Nationals in the opening game of this 4-game series, 5-4.
So next up for the Nats is Game 2 of this series at the Braves. Friday night at 7:15. Foster Griffin is slated to be the Nats starting pitcher for that game. TGIF on a Friday night. How appropriate is that potentially Foster Griffin's final start for the Nats is on a Friday night? So what to make of everything that has been out there regarding Foster Griffin in recent days? We on Thursday had multiple notable reports regarding the Nats and Griffin. MLB insider Buster Olney of ESPN, he on Thursday morning in a post on X, quote, "The Nationals are exploring a possible extension with NL All-Star Foster Griffin, who is eligible for free agency in the fall. The circumstance mirrors that of Seth Lugo last year, when the Royals extended Lugo instead of trading him before he hit free agency. Griffin, 31, is 12-2 with a 2.76 ERA this season," end quote. But MLB insider Mark Feinsand of MLB.com, he, in an MLB.com piece that came out on Thursday afternoon, was referenced by the author of the piece, Nats insider Jessica Camerato of Nationals.com, as having been told by a source that a contract extension between Griffin and the Nats is, quote, "very unlikely," end quote. So Thursday morning, Buster Olney says the Nats are exploring an extension with Griffin. Thursday afternoon, we get word from Mark Feinsand that Griffin and the Nats are very unlikely to arrive at a contract extension. And keep in mind that all of this is off MLB insider Joel Sherman of the New York Post in a piece that came out this past Saturday morning, writing that, quote, "extension talks fizzled quickly," end quote, between Griffin and the Nats. So a lot to digest with all of this. It's worth noting ESPN did the telecast of Nats Braves on Thursday night. Buster Olney was like the sideline reporter / dugout reporter, was gone to a bunch during the broadcast, talked a lot about what's going on with the Nats and with the Braves and, around MLB. Had some good stuff on the looming labor Armageddon this coming off season. But, with all of this, I was thinking about all this, and it's like, on the one hand, you say, okay, well, what Olney reported and what Feinsand reported are not in concert. But I suppose it is possible that everybody's right here, and we're just in the midst of the Nats engaging Griffin and things not going anywhere. So like with Joel Sherman's report, it could be, okay, the Nats tried to do an extension, things fizzled quickly. The Nats then re-engaged Griffin for an extension, as was reported by Olney, and then that didn't go anywhere, as was reported by Feinsand. So I wonder if maybe everyone is correct in his reporting in this circumstance.
I think the truth probably falls somewhere in the middle of all this. Yes, the Nationals are trying to get something done and talking to him and proposing it to him. Of course, they should. There's zero reason for them not to pursue something like that. But if you're Foster Griffin, as we've discussed, it's got to be really compelling for you to agree to do that right now and to forego free agency. And, what has not gotten out are any kind of numbers. How many years, how many dollars? And I think that's the key to the whole thing. Are the Nats offering something that really feels like it's above and beyond what he might get later on, or even in the ballpark of what he might get later on as a free agent? Or are they just kind of proposing a lesser deal as like a first kind of offer, and maybe you can convince him to agree to it? And we just don't know the answer to that. I think this one is going down to the wire, and there are so many potential outcomes here. It could be an extension. I'm going to guess probably not. I think we've already had this discussion that it's a complicated thing to pull off right now. Good on them for trying, and I hope they keep trying. They should, right up until the trade deadline, see if they can come to some kind of common ground or something that would convince Griffin to forego free agency. But short of that, then you're now making your decision. Is he somebody we believe can help us the rest of the way and that's worth keeping, even at the expense of potentially losing him as a free agent? Or do you want to re-engage with talks later on after the trade deadline? Are you willing to take a compensatory draft pick if you lose him? And then ultimately, what are you being offered by other teams? And this all comes into play. And at some point, and my guess would be that this is one of those that goes right down to trade deadline day, is that Paul Taboni will view all those potential options out there and ultimately have to decide to himself what one makes the most sense for us, both short-term and long-term. I don't know the answer to it. I'm not sure he knows the answer to it. But I'm glad that they are at least somewhat engaging on this. I'm glad that it's not just as simple as, there's no chance of an extension. We're just going to listen to what the best offers for you are, because there's a whole lot of reason to believe that the best outcome for the team, obviously, and arguably for Griffin as well, would be to work out a deal and never let it get to the point where you have to decide if you're going to trade him.
It would be so interesting to know what is being offered, because we have seen this dance before where a team tries to sign a player to an extension but doesn't make the requisite offer, doesn't make the kind of offer that you know is going to get an extension done. See what went on with the Nats and outfielder Juan Soto 4 years ago. Here's what I wonder, though. So the Nats pretty clearly are trying to sign Foster Griffin to a contract extension now. And so you ask yourself, well, why the urgency right now? And what I wonder is this: is Paul Taboni looking at this as we're either going to extend him or we're going to trade him? It's going to be one extreme or the other. And I've talked about this, how I think generally speaking, this is the way to approach a situation like this. It's one extreme or the other. You extend the guy or you trade the guy. If it wasn't the case for Taboni that he's thinking that way, then why would you be trying so hard right now to get an extension done? That urgency wouldn't be there. You know, you would be saying, okay, we can wait until later in the season. We can wait until the offseason to address what Foster Griffin is doing contractually. The fact that the Nats are so aggressively pursuing a contract extension now suggests to me that it's extend him or trade him. And if, in fact, an extension is not going to be realized, then I do think Griffin is as good as gone. Like, I do think he probably is going to get traded. Now, look, there is nuance with this. You brought up the potential for the compensatory draft pick. I do think there is a reasonable argument to be made. Keep him, see if he can help you make the playoffs, try to re-sign him in the offseason, and if you can't re-sign him, you do at least get a comp pick for him via issuing a qualifying offer. So I don't think it's ridiculous to look at it that way, but I do think, generally speaking, especially with a guy having as high level of a season that Griffin is having, extend him or trade him, one extreme or the other. And I wonder if that's what Taboni is thinking, because otherwise, why would the Nats be so aggressively pursuing an extension right now? And I think that's the thing to be thinking about here.
Yeah, I think your line of thinking here is appropriate, that it would be one or the other, that you would feel compelled to just want to know one way or the other on August 3rd, is he going to be on this team beyond this year? And if not, are we going to then trade him? So Yeah, I think that would be the urgency to it and the reason behind trying to get something done right now. That said, it doesn't mean that they couldn't ultimately look at this later on. And I just keep coming back to, it all boils down to what are they being offered? If they don't get an extension done, yes, it's easy to say, well, then you have to trade him. But if you're not getting an offer that you find reasonable, then no, you don't have to do anything. You can hang on to him. You can try to win. You can try to sign him later. You can take the compensatory pick, whatever. So yes, I think if you're to map out what are Paul Taboni's best case scenario, number 2 scenario, number 3 scenario, and down the list. Number 1, best case is he agrees to an extension that they're on terms that the team is comfortable with. That doesn't happen. It's probably a trade, but a trade for something of real value that you believe is going to help your team and maybe not even kill your chances of winning this year. It certainly doesn't, hurt your chances of winning in the near future after this. That doesn't, but if you don't get that, then you go down to the next step, which is, okay, we're still in this thing. We're going to keep him. We're going to try for this, and maybe we can sign him again down the road. And then step 4 at the bottom would be, we keep him. We maybe make the playoffs. We don't make the playoffs. And then we offer him the qualifying offer and we get something in return in a draft pick. So it is a fascinating decision. It's not very simple. It's not easy. I don't envy him for what he has to try to sort through here with these different options. And eventually in the next few days, it's going to come time for Paul Taboni to make the call, whatever that is. Either he feels like there's a shot at an extension, and if it's not, then he's got to look at what is the best trade offer being made to me. And then is that offer enough to make the move? And if not, are you willing to now take your chances, not trade him, and see what happens after this?
Here's another thing to consider. So Griffin is scheduled to pitch on Friday night. If you know that you're not getting an extension done and you know that you want to trade him, do you still have him pitch in that game and risk injury? However remote, do you have him pitch in that game and risk injury? Or do you look at it the other way and say, hey, this is our last shot to have Foster Griffin pitch for us in the midst of a postseason push. Oh, by the way, we're in the midst of a big 4-game series at the Braves. Do you still pitch the guy? In other sports, there's no way you'd play the guy. Like in the NBA, as you approach the NBA trade deadline, you see all kinds of trade candidates develop, lower back tightness or, hamstring soreness, etc. You don't so much get that in baseball, but I wonder if that thought at all enters into Taboni's mind. Like if he is certain that he's going to be trading Griffin and it's just a matter of determining the highest bidder, do you still have him pitch on Friday night?
I don't think there's any question about that. He is pitching, unless a trade happened already, before that point. No, he is pitching Friday night. Your team's in a race. What kind of message are you sending to your team if you pull him back from that one? You saw Tarek Skubal start for the Tigers on Thursday in what may have been his final outing for them. It's not like he needed to prove anything to suitors out there by pitching again. You even going back, remember, Max Scherzer pitched the day before the trade deadline in 2021 and pitched really well. And there was this thought of, well, hey, do you really want to take any chances on that? No, he's a competitor. Of course, he's going to pitch. Foster Griffin is going to take the mound Friday for the Nationals unless they were to work out a deal for a trade prior to first pitch.
Yeah, it's interesting. In baseball, you do not have that kind of conduct like you do, say, in the NBA regarding the deadline. You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com, including if you would like for us to deliver a shout out for you, for someone who you care about. Email the man who runs the podcast, Tim Shovers, $25 per shout out. Again, that email address is natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We have this from Amanda. A happy birthday to Walter Warden from his beautiful wife, Amanda. Walter listens to Nats Chat every single day, and this year he will, in fact, enjoy that the trade deadline is not in the middle of his July 31st birthday, as is typically the case. Yes, Walter benefiting from a later than normal MLB trade deadline. We say happy birthday to Walter, and thank you for listening. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat, courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
Here's the pitch. Swing a long drive, right field toward the corner. This one headed toward the chop house. It is long, long gone on the roof of the chop house. A tape measure home run for Luis Garcia Jr. And the Nationals lead it 2-0. That's number 23 for Garcia, adding to his career high. That one simply sent out of sight.